Welcome to the Explainer. Let's just jump right in. Picture this. It's the dead of night. You wake up. Your room looks exactly as you left it. Same shadows, same familiar dark. You're wide awake. But then you try to move, and nothing happens. Literally nothing. Your arms won't lift. You try to turn your head, but your neck is completely unresponsive. You try to scream for help, for anyone really, but your throat makes absolutely zero sound. You are completely, utterly locked inside your own body.
And that's when you feel it. Something is in the room with you. You can't see it clearly, but you just know it's there. Some malevolent presence lurking right by the door. Next comes the weight, this heavy, impossible weight pressing down on your chest, suffocating you. The terror is absolute, right? Because your brain is screaming at you, this is happening, this is real.
Okay, let's talk about the hard reality here. That visceral, terrifying sequence we just walked through, it's not some super rare anomaly. Actually, about 8% of people are going to experience this exact terror at least once in their lives. And if you're a student or a shift worker, well, that number totally skyrockets. This is a very common human experience, and to really grasp it, we need to look at how humanity has tried to make sense of it for centuries.
Section 1. The same experience, different monsters. So this exact phenomenon has been documented across literally every culture in recorded history. It's deeply, deeply shaped global folklore. Think about it. Across cultures, separated by thousands of miles and hundreds of years, people reported the exact same core experience. Paralysis, chest pressure, and evil presence. In Newfoundland, they call it the Old Hag. Over in medieval Europe, it was an incubus or a succubus. Today, in modern America, people often report alien abductions. The cultural costumes vary wildly, for sure, but the core neurological event? Entirely identical. People actually created highly specific vocabulary just to describe the physical sensation of being pinned down by these forces. Take Japan, for example. The term there is kanashibari, which literally translates to being bound in metal by spirits or foxes. The words might change, but the physical reporting of the event is universal.
And you can see this universal recognition captured perfectly in Henry Fuseli's 1781 painting, The Nightmare. You've got a sleeping woman, completely paralyzed, with this grotesque imp sitting heavily right on her chest, while a horse's head watches from the shadows. This captured a visual vocabulary that proved the experience was universally recognized centuries before modern neuroscience even existed to explain it.
Section 2. The failure of REM atonia. So what's actually happening to you? Let's strip away the supernatural for a second and look at the hard biology. The absolute crucial point here is that during REM sleep, your brain is busy generating highly active, vivid dreams. To stop you from physically running, fighting, or jumping out of bed, your brainstem steps in and actively paralyzes your voluntary muscles. It's called REM atonia, and it's a super effective evolutionary safety switch. But this safety switch has a very specific failure mode. Normally, as you wake up, your consciousness, your sensory awareness, and your muscle control all boot back up at the exact same time. But during sleep paralysis, the coordination glitches. Steps 1 and 2 happen, you wake up, you see your bedroom, but step 3 fails. That motor suppression just refuses to release. So you are mentally totally awake, but your body is still stuck in its protective sleep mode. Your brain, understandably, frantically tries to make sense of this physical mismatch. Your amygdala, that's your threat detection center, is still fired up from REM sleep. But wait, you're awake, you're paralyzed, and there's no actual threat. The brain absolutely hates an unanchored threat signal, so it just manufactures one. Meanwhile, your temporal parietal junction, which handles your spatial awareness, gets completely confused by the fact that you can't move. So it actively places that manufactured invisible threat right there inside your bedroom. It's gotten to the point where sleep scientists have categorized 3 specific hallucinations produced by all this neural confusion. First, the intruder. That's what creates the sensed presence in the room. Then there's the incubus, which generates that false, suffocating physical chest pressure. And finally, the vestibular motor hallucination, which makes you feel like you're floating or being dragged. Notice how directly those scientific categories map right onto all those historical monsters we talked about earlier? It's like a giant puzzle coming together.
Section 3. The Monster and the Muse.
Now here's where the science takes a totally surprising pivot. The exact same mechanism that produces this absolute terror, it also produced some of the most important art ever made. You see, sleep paralysis lives in what we call the hypnagogic state. That's that delicate, slippery threshold right between wakefulness and sleep. In this exact state, the strict, logical rules of your waking thoughts start to loosen up, and vivid, involuntary dream imagery begins to bleed right into reality.
Throughout history, artists have intentionally tapped into this. Take Mary Shelley. She beautifully described the origin of Frankenstein as an unbidden vision arriving with acute mental clarity. It wasn't quite a dream, but it was way beyond normal daydreaming. Her vision of the monster arrived fully formed right in this specific, unbidden threshold state.
The surrealist painter Salvador Dalí went even further, though. He systematically hacked this state. He had this technique where he'd fall asleep sitting up, holding a heavy key over a metal plate. The exact second he crossed the threshold into sleep, his hand would relax, the key would crash onto the plate, and bam, he'd wake up. He deliberately jolted himself awake at the exact moment of hypnagogic transition, so he could immediately sketch the melting clocks and distorted bodies for his surrealist masterpieces.
And hey, this isn't just some artistic legend. A 2021 study in Science Advances actually put this to the test. Researchers gave subjects these creative math problems to solve while monitoring their sleep stages. They found that the people who reached the N1 sleep stage, that exact hypnagogic threshold where sleep paralysis hangs out, they solved significantly more creative problems than the people who stayed awake or fell into a deeper sleep.
Section 4. The brain's ultimate construction.
So, what does all this cross-cultural consistency and weird creative power actually tell us about the human mind? It proves that the monster and the muse live in the exact same room. Our ancestors' reasoning from their lived experiences weren't actually wrong about the feeling of terror. The Old Hag, the Incubus, that was a completely real experience to them. The only thing they lacked was the neuroscience to realize the monster was being built entirely inside their own skulls. The same boundary that generates paralyzing terror also generates absolute masterpieces.
Which leaves us with a final thought to take away from this explainer. Your brain is essentially a master construction engine. In just a few confused seconds between waking and sleeping, it can completely manufacture a convincing, multisensory hallucination of a hostile entity. So, if your mind has the sheer power to fabricate a fully realized, terrifying reality at 3 a.m. while you are physically awake, what on earth is it doing when you fully surrender to sleep? We'll explore that hidden world of dreams next time.